Let me start that again. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me, I just forgot to turn on the microphone there, so hopefully you can all hear me. Um, First of all, welcome to the Jenman African Safaris Guided Group Safaris 2020 webinar. My name is Pierce Synnott. I've been with Jenman's African Safaris since early 2017, and I am the marketing specialist, which means that I support our agents and operators based in UK, Ireland, France, the Nordic countries, and the Benelux countries. Okay, just a quick introduction to myself. Now, today I'm just going to run through really giving you an introduction to our guided group safaris. Obviously, in half an hour, I can't do everything, but hopefully I'll give you an overview of what it's about, the vehicles we use, the accommodation, etc. And then we'll have a look at a few of three of the main itineraries, or some of the best-selling itineraries that we have. And then I'll finish off quickly with just a very quick couple of words on the Grow Africa Foundation, which is our in-house charitable foundation. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping first. You will see in the bottom right, there is a chat pod. And if you would like to if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in there. I'm not going to stop the presentation as we go, but rather at the end of it all, I'll come back and try and answer any questions that I can at that stage. Okay, so if everyone's happy with that, I'll start the presentation. That's right. Okay, sorry. To start off with, Jenman African Safaris, this is really where we are and what we do. If you can see down below, around here is Cape Town, so that's where the head office is. We've got a staff of plus minus 70 or so people there, which is all the admin, reservations, marketing, accounts, etc., including our own workshop. We've then got in Botswana, operational office, again in Vic Falls, and then Arusha and Tana. So all the shaded areas you see there in the yellow, red, and blue are the areas we operate in. Who are Jenman African Safaris? On the left here, we've got Garth. He's the founder of Jenman African Safaris, and that was over 25 years ago. And then we've got, who I'm sure many of you will know already, Katja, who is now the CEO of Jenman African Safaris. So she's the one in charge and running the show. Super dynamic, from German origin, and is our matriarch, I suppose. On the other side here, we are speaking about guided groups. So this is the guided groups team. Many of you will already be familiar with Kyle and with Lisa. So they're the two main consultants who will handle the bulk of your inquiries. They're then supported by Anika, who is the guide coordinator. And then there's Zany and Geneva, who are both tour coordinators. So they basically help Kyle and Lisa organizing, doing all the graft behind the scenes. Finally, over on the left, we've got Peter, who's our new head of sales. Now, he came in a few months ago. I think is doing a super job. He's shaking up the departments a little bit, and hopefully improving things as we go. Quickly touching on the vehicles. At present, we have a fleet of about 20 or so vehicles, and the Sprinters here is what we're moving towards. So at the moment, the fleet, there's also some other vehicles, but looking forward, you can expect more Sprinters coming online, and that's already started to happen. And the reasons for that, I will go through now in just a couple of minutes. But the Sprinter is really the workhorse of the fleet. Then we've got in Botswana, you need to have Botswana registered vehicle and Botswana registered guides to operate in the country. So therefore, from Maun, we've got our own fleet of Botswana vehicles, which are typically more like this. So it's a 4x4, more of a safari looking vehicle, but it's open side. So the sides are canvas and can be rolled right up, which is quite nice. So the plus side of that, you arrive in a game reserve, and basically from there, you got you've got very good viewing into the reserve. The downside of having the open sides is a little bit slower on the road itself. So it is a bit of a 50-50, what is the better option? We have decided a better vehicle in the reserve is what we're going for. So sometimes the transfer times might be a bit longer than in other vehicles, but it's worth it when you get to the reserves. East Africa, here's our East African vehicles. They're only 7-seaters, whereas the others are typically 12 or over, 12 to 15. So therefore, a larger group of, for example, 12 people will be 2 vehicles in convoy. They are hard structure with a pop-open roof and nice big opening windows. On to the next slide. So I mentioned we're moving towards sprinters. So this means we're slowly decommissioning the Fusos, which is slightly more of a truck sort of feel, maybe a little bit more of an overland look and feel. But ultimately, the feedback we've been getting from all our clients is that the sprinters are more comfortable. And from our point of view as well, they're also more reliable. So on all accounts, even though on occasion the client might arrive at the airport and be slightly disappointed not to have a safari vehicle, at the end of the tour, the feedback is consistently better in the sprinter, and that's why we're moving that way. So why is it better? First of all, the sprinter is purpose-built to be a people carrier, which means we've only got minor conversions that need to be done on it. So what we actually do, we don't cut up any of the bodywork at all. We just put on large profile tires, super spring suspension, and all that raises the vehicle a little bit. So you're up higher, and obviously it deals better with the bumpy roads and makes the ride more comfortable. We also add in a tow bar and trailer, obviously to take all the luggage and other equipment that we need with us. And then we add extra thick rubber seals, and that's really trying to make the vehicle dust proof. As many of you will know, dust in Africa and places like Namibia, quite a problem to try and keep it out if you want. So this helps. Another element that's worth considering is that because the sprinters have been made as a road vehicle, it's better adapted for the road. And effectively, that's where most of our tours spend most of the time, on the open road. To put that into perspective, we put a limiter on all our vehicles so that they cannot speed. So a driver can want to go as fast as he wants, but there's a limiter on it. On the sprinters, it's 100 kilometers an hour, whereas in the Fusos, it's 80 kilometers an hour. So straight away, we're saving a little bit of time on the road, which I think is a plus for everyone. Touring in Southern Africa means a lot of road time, a lot of driving, and this helps us to cut down a little bit. Within the vehicle, we do all the conversions ourselves. So at the moment, we've got 15 seats in our sprinters, reclining seats, armrests, air conditioning for each and every person, reading lights the same, USB charging points, a bag rack above, and obviously seat belts. We've also put in a good intercom sound system, which doesn't say that the driver and guide are cut off from the rest of the group, because they're not. It's all part of the same cab, if you want. But it does mean they don't need to shout for the people at the back to hear. We've got a fridge for cool drinks, opening windows, and shades for the window as well. At the moment, we've got 6 sprinters in the fleet, and there's another 5 on their way. The new ones that are coming online are 14-seaters instead of the 15 seats that we currently have in the sprinters. And even though we go with a maximum of 12 people, we have a couple of extra seats just to give a little bit of extra space. The new vehicles will have thicker and more comfortable seats, and that recline further as well. So we're constantly looking to improve the vehicles as we go. I'm now going to quickly hand you over to Garth, who's going to run you through this quick little video on the sprinter itself.
Vehicles have always been my passion, and there's not a lot of different vehicle makes that can handle the conditions in Africa. What we've seen as a company, the evolution of road tripping has led us to the Mercedes all-terrain. We get a rating from every guest on the specific vehicle they were in. So that's where we've been comparing the different styles of vehicles. By far, the most comfortable vehicle we have in our fleet has been the all-terrain Sprinter. It's a phenomenal vehicle. We've had the best feedback from our clients, from our agents, from our staff here, from our guides, from our drivers. When we get to a place like Maun, for instance, in Botswana, that's when we get off the Sprinters and then we get onto our Land Cruisers, our open game drive Land Cruisers, and we go into the parks for 4 days, 3 nights on those. And that's obviously the best viewing, and that's when we need the four-wheel drive. Then when we're back onto the tar roads of Botswana or the good gravel roads of Namibia, then the most comfortable vehicle is the Sprinter to get from A to B. This is our Mercedes all-terrain, and basically what we've done to the vehicle, as you can see, we've got off-road tires on them. We've also raised the suspension. We have what we call a super spring that we put on the back. You can see the difference in height. And the vehicles have 15 seats in the back. We only put 12 clients into the actual vehicle. So they're very comfortable seats. You just take your armrest and kicks down like this. You sit here, and then you can also, when you're on a longer journey, you can kick back and you can just relax it. The seats have all got individual air cons coming through here. We've got little lights and that, reading lights. Nowadays, of course, with the cell phones and cameras and that, everyone wants to charge, so we have charging points throughout the all-terrain bus. Our windows are open up nicely, so it's like perfect for any pictures that clients want to take. So I've been really excited. Late last year we decided that I'd get more involved back in the vehicle. So it's an exciting time for me to get back involved in the vehicles. And also I'm so happy with these the Mercedes all-terrain, and we're rolling out more of those vehicles now.
Okay, so thank you, Garth, for that. So that's Garth's introduction to the vehicle. So hopefully now you've got a good idea of what sort of vehicles we're using on the different tours. To hit on accommodation, is a question we always get: what kind of accommodation are we supplying? It's very difficult to classify it in as one typical type, because there is a bit of a range, and it obviously depends on which area they're traveling to. So it can be quite simple accommodation. If you look at down the bottom left, there's Bedouin Bush Camp. It's a very simple setup. It's tented accommodation, simple beds, hot bucket showers. So really a simple setup. And that you can't say is 4-star or 5-star. It's not. It's kind of 3-star, but it's really what you see in the top right is what it's all about. It's lost a little bit in the bush. It's about open fires in the evening, the stars overhead, the animals around, the sounds of the bush. So it's not your classic kind of luxury, but it is perfectly suited, and it gives an experience to those who actually travel there. Now, this can be combined with, a Sable Sands will have a different strong points. And when you get into for example, some of the South African accommodation, maybe the Townhouse Hotel or the Cavern, a lot more contemporary in style, maybe more stylish, more attention to decor and facilities. But again, it suits the area that they're in. So what are we trying to get from our accommodation? Well, first of all, we want it to be in a good location, close to the attractions and highlights that we want our guests to visit. Standard wise, we're looking 3 to entry level 4-star, I suppose, is the right kind of category. And the style then depends on the area they're in and obviously what's available. But effectively, with the whole tour, we're trying to create experiences. It's not just about the accommodation itself, it's about experiences, but the accommodation should be adding to the experience. So a bush tented camp in the middle of nowhere adds to your safari experience. So that's really what we're looking for in our accommodations. What makes us different? By and large, I think 25 years plus of experience. I really hope it counts for something. We should have learned something over that time. And I think that's a strong point of Jenman. We've got a variety of itineraries with different tour lengths, which means that we have something for everyone. Visiting different countries, different times a year, different holiday amount of days available for holiday, all those sort of things. We can cater for quite a wide range of people. The vehicles and the accommodation, I've already hit on. Guides, I would like to say a quick word. I do get all the feedback after each and every tour. We get a kind of a summary of the feedback we get, and a consistent there is positives on the guide. So our guides are extremely good. They're people's people. They're well qualified, and they generally add a whole load to the tour. So it's definitely one of our strong points. As you know, small group sizes, maximum 12 guests, except for the World in One Country where we can take 14. Different language departures, English, German, and French. Our operational offices we've already touched on. For those of you who are worried about our minimum 4 departure, we do have guaranteed departure dates. And if that minimum 4 is a problem, you can always concentrate on those departure dates. As soon as we've got one person booked, that departure then becomes guaranteed. Okay. What we're trying to achieve with our guided group tours is exceptional value for money. So if somebody was to go and travel to Botswana as a tailor-made experience, it would be either extremely expensive to have a private guide, or else it's fly-in, which can be very expensive as well. So what we provide is a value for money option for people to go and visit these countries, and hopefully get a similar experience to those who pay the top dollar. And we're supporting this with our agents portal, which has got updated availability and a booking function. So it can all be done through that portal. So that's a quick introduction to Jenman and our guided groups as a company. I now just want to look in and focus in a bit more on some of the itineraries. The first one is the Botswana Wildlife Breakaway, and that's probably our most popular itinerary. It's been going for quite a while, and we've got quite a lot of departures for it each year. So a very popular itinerary. It starts in the Vic Falls, works its way across Caprivi Strip, down into the Okavango Delta, up into Moremi, across Mahadi to Nata, up to Chobe, and then after a few days in Hwangi National Park in Zimbabwe, ends at the Vic Falls again. So a lovely itinerary, 15 days. I suppose it's the best of Zimbabwe, of Botswana and Zimbabwe. The highlights, for me, the highlights of this tour, Victoria Falls is always going to be a highlight. It's something quite amazing to see, and it's also on many people's bucket list. So it's one of the things that needs to be ticked off for somebody visiting Southern Africa. So Vic Falls, definitely a highlight. Okavango Delta, something quite unique. So definitely a highlight. It's not always, a Delta isn't always a big game experience, though there's plenty of big game there. But to combine your safari and your tour, which is quite a lot in a vehicle, with this time on the water and surrounded by water, which is serene and quiet, it's a beautiful contrast. Moremi Game Reserve. So now you're looking at big game, hopefully big cats, and all the thrill of a real safari. So that's again a highlight. Chobe National Park in the north of Botswana. So that's the boat-based safari, which I think is the highlight of this. The phenomenal part about that is that the animals come down to the water to drink. So the animals come to you. You don't need to go out and search for them. It's also phenomenal for photography. The reflection of the water, the sunsets with the water, it accentuates all those photographs, and you can come out with phenomenal shots. Great for Instagram and all the other social media bits and pieces. Finally, Hwangi National Park, a lot more wild. So not half as many people there. It's more of a dust and arid sort of area. It's in the vehicles and searching for game. So it's really an authentic kind of game experience in Zimbabwe. So for me, those are the 5 highlights of the Botswana Wildlife Breakaway. I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail on this itinerary, and hopefully this will then sum up what it's all about. We're going to go through the activities. So what happens at each area? In the Vic Falls, we start off with a tour of the falls and a sunset cruise. So they're all included in the tour. And then there's a host of different optional activities, from bungee jumping to whitewater rafting to bridge tours to Flight of the Angels, a host of other things available on request. Going across to the Caprivi, you've got a Game Drive Mahangu Game Reserve. Now, this game reserve is it's not huge density of game, but it's a great introduction. It's a first stop in the bush. You have plenty of plains game, maybe some buffalo, some elephant. And effectively what we're doing is we're traversing the reserve. So it's going along the main road, going off onto some of the smaller paths along the river drive and things like that, looking out for game, and then we come out the other end. So it's all done in the tour vehicle. Continuing down to the Okavango Delta, and I said at this stage already, you've had quite a lot of time in the vehicle. So to get out and do a Makoro excursion, and for those of you who don't know, the Makoro is those traditional dugout canoes which are poled along. The delta is very shallow, so you have somebody in the back who's then poling you along the water channels. And gliding along the water like that, and the tranquility is absolutely beautiful, especially when contrasted with the time in the vehicle and the dust of the drier areas. We also get more time out of the vehicles. We do a bushwalk. So onto one of the islands in the delta, and a nice bushwalk in there as well. So stretch the legs a little bit. Continuing on to Kwai and Moremi area. We got a day and a night drive on the concession. So we'll be staying in an area, for example, Bedouin Bush Camp just outside of Moremi, where it's a concession. So therefore we can do the night drives. And then we go in a full day game drive into Moremi itself as well. So we get kind of the best of both worlds. Crossing through the Maharihari Pans onto Nata, and there we get a visit to the Nata Bird Sanctuary. Now, for me, might not be the highlight of the tour, but it's a good stopover spot, and the bird sanctuary, plenty of raptors. It's an interesting visit. From there on up to Chobe, where we get a morning game drive, but also the evening and sunset boat cruise, which, as I mentioned, is one of the highlights. The nice thing about about the game there, again, as I was saying, it comes down to the river, and you can really see quite a lot, including stacks of elephant. Chobe has the highest density of elephant of anywhere on the planet, and lots of sort of the water-based, the crocodiles and the hippos, etc. Obviously, hippos should not be confused with zippos. And if you're not sure what the difference between those two are, well, the hippo is a four-legged, extremely heavy animal, whereas the zippo is just a little lighter. Okay, so that's moving on to Hwangi. We got a full day game drive in Hwangi, and then we got a half day game drive on the concession. So again, Hwangi accommodation is in a concession bordering the national park. Again, no fences between the park and the concession, so animals come and go freely. But you do have the advantage of being able to do night drives, off-road, etc. And we combine that with a visit to the Painted Dog Centre. The Painted Dog Centre is a rehabilitation of the wild dog or the painted dog that might have been found in the area through snares or whatever else it is. So an interesting visit. Not a huge amount to add on this. What I will point out here is under the vehicle section, it says suitable touring vehicle. And that's to say we can't guarantee which vehicle you will have in advance. It can depend on the group size. We can have scheduled one vehicle to be on that tour, and then relatively at last minute, things have needed to be moved around for one reason or another, and suddenly it'll be another vehicle that'll be taking it instead. So we try not to guarantee any particular type of vehicle for any one tour. The other thing to look out for is the meals. Typically what we'll do is all breakfasts will be included, and then other meals will be when there isn't a kind of an easy alternative, if you want. So if we're going to a town, for example, with a range of restaurants, we'll rather leave people fend for themselves and choose what they would like to eat. When we're in a little hotel or something which has got quite a big menu, again, we will let people choose what they want, meal for their own account. But when we're in the bush or in a lodge where it's just a fixed menu, so for the meals, then they'll all be included. So there is a bit of mix and matching. Also worth noticing that the lunches, they can be literally a picnic stop on the side of the road. On some days, there's quite long distances to cover, and when needed, the guide will organize and prepare a lunch, and it could be a salad and cold meats and cheese and rolls, or something similar. And it can be done on the side of the road. Bring out a table, set everything up, and then off again to continue the journey. So the lunches can be quite quick, sort of picnic style. The dinners are usually good, substantial, hot dinners. So that's a quick sum up of the Botswana Wildlife Breakaway. Moving on to the second itinerary I want to present, which is the northern or the southern experience. The difference being the northern experience goes from Cape Town all the way up 24 days to the Vic Falls, and the southern experience simply goes the other way around. So the northern experience, starting with Cape Town, works its way up to the Namibian border, into those dunes in Sossusvlei, Swakopmund, through Damaraland, up into Etosha, the great game viewing area of Namibia, then across Caprivi, Delta, Chobe, and ending at the Vic Falls. If we look at the highlights, Cape Town, I'm sure many of you already know Cape Town, but a wonderful place for a holiday, and on so many people's bucket lists, I couldn't not put it on the highlights part. Sossusvlei, for me, the really amazing thing about Namibia is the deserts, whether it's the Namib or whether it's the sort of the Damaraland rocky area. I think they're absolutely phenomenal, and Sossusvlei is something quite exceptional. So that's without a doubt a highlight. Etosha, as I mentioned there just a couple of minutes ago, the principal area for big game in Namibia. Combine that with the salt pans, the Etosha pans, the sunsets and the light, and particularly in the dry season, super experience. The Delta we've hit on before, and same with the Chobe and Victoria Falls. So there for me are the highlights of the northern and southern experience. Activities, so what's included in the tour? In Cape Town, we've got a city tour, so usually it's a morning tour, including a visit to Table Mountain, weather permitting. We then in the afternoon got a Constantia wine tasting, and the following day, a full day peninsula tour. So it's really a quick introduction to the city, to the mother city. On the way up to the Namibian border, we stop off at the Cederberg, so a mountainous area, which is best known for its rooibos tea. So we do a tea tasting there. At the Orange River, which the Orange River is really the border between South Africa and Namibia in that area. It's a really arid area, rocky, ancient rocks, burnt up kind of stone. It's haggard and rough, extremely beautiful. There is a little bit of game around. Typically sort of baboons is the thing you'll see or hear. There are leopard in the region, though not usually seen at all. But things like reptiles, plenty of. When I was up there, I know we saw a lot of, for example, a lot of lizards. Used to see them pairing up these lizards, the two by two, and then there was one poor lizard who was there all on his own. I was wondering why had he not got a mate? And then it kind of struck me that he probably had a reptile dysfunction. Okay, that's the second of my bad jokes. Moving on again from so the Orange River is a canoe trip. Beautiful to go down that river, and again, it's out of the vehicle for a little bit. Further north into the Fish River Canyon, supposedly the second biggest canyon in the world. Beautiful viewpoints, sunset drinks over the canyon, and a visit to the Ice Hot Springs for those of you who want a bit of warm water. Sossusvlei is those high dunes, typically done in the morning, early morning, watch the sunrise over the dunes, beautiful lights, phenomenal photographs, and a great experience. In Swakopmund, a load of optional activities to choose from. Again, I'm not going to go through them all, but everything from dune boarding to boat cruises and everything in between. Spitzkoppe is a big granite outcrop further north towards the Damaraland area, where you've got some sand rock art and just a beautiful area to climb up the boulders and explore the boulders. On Maruru, we've got a gin tasting or occasionally a wine tasting in the area. It's a local distillery, and I'm told the gin is actually quite good. So it's nice to hear. I haven't been there myself, but I believe it is good and it's an interesting visit. Something I'd like to just stop on quickly is the Himba village. So this visit is not, and it's important to get this across to some of the clients, it's not going to visit an authentic Himba village lost somewhere in the middle of nowhere. This is an experience that's been put together by the local population who want to highlight their own culture and traditions. So they have set up this traditional village, and they come and people are able to interact with them and see what their traditional living is all about. So it's not an authentic, as I say, village, and you're not going to meet people who live that traditional life, but it is an opportunity to experience what the Himba traditions is all about. Now, the guide will brief guests before going to visit this Himba village, but it is occasionally we do get feedback from people who were expecting something different, and it's important to get across that this is what it is. In Etosha, game drives in the tour vehicle. We've got a few days to explore the national park. And then Delta, again, you got the Mokoro excursion and the bushwalk. Caprivi, the drive in Mahangu National Park. Chobe, as before, morning game drive, afternoon boat-based game viewing. And then Vic Falls, tour of the falls, and the sunset boat cruise. So there's a quick sum up of the Northern experience. What I will say is that this year we have introduced a 21-day option. And the reason for that is that it's quite a lot of driving. That southern part from Cape Town up to Swakopmund is quite a long drive and can be long days in the vehicle. And particularly with the roads being in very bad condition in Namibia, this can take time. So some people have been finding it too much. So we have offered the opportunity to arrive into Cape Town 3 days later than everyone else starts. So you do your couple of days in Cape Town with your city tour and peninsula tour. Then you fly up to Walvis Bay and spend a night in Swakopmund, and you join the rest of the crew down at Sossel's Flay, and then you continue as normal. So please remember, this is an option. Please feel free to offer it to your clients. And hopefully this way it means that we don't get this kind of complaints coming from clients about too much time in the vehicle. So there is a way around this. The World in One Country is the final itinerary I want to have a look at. Starting in Johannesburg, down to Kruger, Eswatini, which used to be Swaziland, Zululand, Drakensberg, Lesotho, and then on down to Addo, Garden Route, Cape Winelands, and Cape Town. So really, it's the best of South Africa in 20 days. Highlights: Kruger National Park, obviously the game viewing. Swaziland or Eswatini, it's a traditional country. It's the smallest independent country in Africa. And yeah, so it's a different feel, a different atmosphere, more of an African sort of feel. So something a little bit special. Shishlui is a reserve that I love. It's very scenic. It's got those rolling hills of Zululand, which are beautiful, and it's got a really high density of game. So the nice thing about Shishlui is that typically you go out in a game drive and you see a lot very quickly. So it's always a nice experience. Drakensberg and Lesotho, again, something very different. Going to Africa and going to visit the mountains might not jump out at everyone. It might not be the thing they're expecting as a highlight, but a beautiful, beautiful area. Lesotho, the Mountain Kingdom, again, it's an independent kingdom, and still very much traditional, and a lot of people living that traditional life. So a beautiful area to go through scenically, but also interesting, also culturally. Garden Route in Cape Town, I think, speak for themselves. A whole host of highlights. So yeah, I think it's also again on people's bucket lists. The activities included in the panorama route, so going from Joburg towards the Kruger, the first stop is in the panorama route. You've got all the viewpoints in the Blythe River Canyon, God's Window, all that sort of thing is all. We'll stop in at all those, and we'll visit Burke's Loch potholes as well, which is basically a geological formation that's been basically carved out of the limestone by the river. Kruger, it's game drives. In Swaziland, then Milwani is one of my favorite little reserves. I think it's super. What happens here is a guided walk. It's got lots of plains game, very relaxed. It's just a sort of a chill. It's got that dark red kind of African soil. It's beautiful. And then we've also got the Chief's Homestead visit. Again, it's a cultural experience. It's not an authentic going to see a tribe living its old traditional lives. St. Lucia, we've got the boat cruise in the Isimangiliso Wetland Park. Again, lots of crocs and hippos and things like that. We've got game drives in Shushlui, as I mentioned before, high density of game, so good game viewing. Drakensberg Mountain, we got walks. It is a World Heritage Site, so that gives an extra something. Lesotho, we do pony trekking, and for the Basotho people, being a mountain kingdom, the tracks are often very small. Small little winding tracks and not full roads. So they typically do use ponies to get around. And so we follow in their footsteps and we take our guests on a little outing on the ponies. Craddock is a small frontier town between sort of Lesotho and Port Elizabeth. 1820s, the settlers set up there and really was a kind of a frontier town. So an interesting visit. In my family, it's best known for being the birthplace of my great-grandfather, which is just an aside, but it's an interesting little frontier town and a good stop-off point between Lesotho and Addo. Addo is game drives, best known for the elephants, but it does now also have lion and buffalo and many other species of game as well. And then into the garden route, hiking in Tsitsikamma, and then oyster tasting in Knysna area. In Oudtshoorn, a guided visit to the Kango Caves, and from there across the Cape Winelands, where, funnily enough, we've got some wine tasting, and ending in Cape Town with a full-day peninsula tour. So that's really a quick sum up of the world in one country. Again, if you look going through a much more, if you want to call it civilized, a more developed country, probably a better word for it. You see there's a lot more meal options along the way, and the number of meals provided or included are much less. So it's just something to keep in mind as you move forward, and if you're talking to guests about this tour. Okay, so that's a summary of the top 3 itineraries, the top 3 tours that we're selling at the moment. If there are questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll get onto them now in just a minute or two. First of all, 2 little things I just want to point out. First of all is our consultants incentive, and we are running this again for 2020. So please, if you're interested, get selling. If you book 10 people or more who travel between the 1st of January 2020 and the 31st of December 2020, book 10 people or more, then you can enjoy a free 14-day safari with us for you and your partner. So it's for 2 people, which is lovely. If you do decide you want to go on a longer, join us in one of our longer itineraries, you get 2 weeks free of charge, and the rest is then pro rata. So we can always come to arrangement on that, no problem at all. Okay, so please keep that in mind, and hopefully we'll see plenty of you on one of our tours in the next year or so. I mentioned I was going to touch quickly on the Grow Africa Foundation, which is our in-house foundation. And this is something that I suppose I care for a lot because I'm very involved in. And I spent quite a lot of time working with the foundation. For every booking we receive from you for the guided group tours, 50 Rand, €5, or $5 will go to the Grow Africa Foundation. So every booking you make with us makes a difference. And it all gets put back into obviously the running of the foundation, but also the projects that we run with it. And really what we would ask you guys as our agents to do is help us spread the word. So if you could speak to your guests or your clients about what we're doing, just let them know in advance. We find that a lot of people on tour would like to have contributed or got involved or known about some of our projects. And the most obvious one we have is Pack for a Purpose. Now, Pack for a Purpose, the benefit goes towards Dingani Primary School, which is just outside of Hwange National Park in Zimbabwe. It's a very underdeveloped community, largely agricultural. So they're self-sufficient. They farm what they eat, and the school has got a very simple setup. So they have given us a list of things that they need in the school, such as pens, paper, copybooks, and whatever else it is. And a guest who wants to get involved and to donate something, can travel in their suitcase with whatever it is they want to donate that can go to the school. And the guide will pick it up from them on arrival, and then we'll organize it to go across to the school. So that's the obvious one. However, there are other projects, Project Pena, which is all to do with the girls in the school, girls maturing, not having access to sanitary pads and things like that, and education. So we provide a solution for that. We've also got Project Resivo, which is all about knowledge, about education, helping with the education. Another one we're really looking to find help with is sponsoring a teacher. So that's $200 a month. If either one of yourselves, your companies, one of your clients are interested in taking on something like that, we do have a whole system where we can issue with a badge to show your support. We'll obviously promote you on our website, and we can feed you information every month as to what's happening in the school, so that you can post it in your social media and make a bit of a hoo-ha around it. Okay. Also, another project we work on is the CWF, the Conservation of Wildlife Fund. So we support that, which is largely to do with anti-poaching in the Hwange area. So the underlying message that I'd like to get across here is, please don't forget to introduce the Grow Africa Fund, the Grow Africa Foundation, to your clients. And if you could let them know about our website, growafricafoundation.org, let them have a look. That would be fantastic. Okay, so that's the end of my my quick presentation. I apologize, it's taken a little bit longer than I was hoping. But if there's any questions, please fire them away now on the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. Here, I got a Jessica here who can't hear anything. Sorry, I'm a bit late on that, Jessica. I hope you found a way in. I'm trying to scroll down the messages here. Many thanks from Malta. Thank you. So question here, do you already use the new Mercedes in Botswana? Yes, we do. So the touring vehicle will be the Mercedes Sprinter, and then we'll kind of decant off into the open vehicle for certain areas in Botswana. So typically going into Moremi, all that will be into the smaller vehicles, but we do also use the bigger, the Sprinters to go through. So for the rest of it. Sorry, I'm battling a little bit with my chat box to try and get it to scroll up and down, so please excuse me. Okay. Have I missed any questions? Okay, if there's no more questions, okay, I can see Sandra is typing. First unread message. Sorry about this, folks. Thank you. No questions. Thanks for the introduction. It's a pleasure. Okay, guys, if that's it, I'm going to say thank you so much to everyone for sitting in. If there are any questions, please do let me know. If I haven't answered them, send me an email, pierce@jenmansafaris.com. Happy to get back to you with any questions or anything I might have missed. Apologies, I'm battling a little bit to scroll properly with this. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I've got one here. Would you personally rather recommend flying or going by car to Swakopmund? It's a different experience. For me personally, if I was going on a once-off trip to Africa and want to see the best of Southern Africa in one time, I would want to drive. But you do need to keep in mind there are quite long distances. Probably the Cedarburg is not the highlight of Southern Africa. Orange River is beautiful. It's a lovely, lovely area. It's very arid, stark. Slightly been missing out on that. Bit the same with the canyon. They are also not the highlights. So while I would prefer do the full driving as part of the experience is road trips, but for many, maybe it's a slightly more elderly, people who've got bad back, anything like that, then definitely rather fly up and miss out those long distances. So I hope that answers the question. Good for the presentation. Thank you. Okay, and now that half of the people have left, I finally got figured out how to use the chat box, and I can now see all the different comments. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to try and send you a recording of this, and hopefully you can then distribute it, look over it when you want. Okay, so thanks again for listening, everybody, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.